I never imagined I'd be the kind of woman who'd walk into her ex's wedding and flip the script without saying a single word. But there I was, dressed in a slate glue silk gown, arm in arm with a man whose presence alone turned every head in the room. The chandeliers shimmered above us, and I could feel hundreds of eyes burning into my back as we stepped into the grand ballroom. And then I saw him. Alex, standing stiff in his tailored tuxedo at the altar, his eyes widening in disbelief the moment he recognized the man beside me. For a second, he looked like he might forget he was minutes away from marrying someone else. He blinked, glanced at Bella, the bride-to-be, then looked back at me as if his entire plan had just exploded in slow motion. Bella hadn't seen us yet. She was still hidden away, preparing for her entrance. But Alex? He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Or karma. We took our seats quietly, pretending nothing was out of the ordinary. My heart was thudding, but my face held steady. This wasn't about revenge. This was about showing up and holding my head high, reminding him, without words, who I was now. The ceremony started, the music swelled, the guests rose as Bella began her walk down the aisle. She looked radiant, polished, expensive. Her gown flowed like liquid light, but then, as she reached the halfway point, her gaze swept across the room and landed on us. She froze. For a moment, her steps faltered, just slightly, her eyes locked on the man beside me. Confusion, panic, hurt, it all flickered across her face before she blinked it away and forced a smile. She made it to the altar, but the damage was done. I could feel it. Something deep in her had shifted. What happened next, no one could have predicted. Not the whispers, not the stunned silence, and not the note that would soon be read aloud in front of everyone, leaving Alex humiliated in a way no one saw coming. But before all that, before the fallout, the walkout, and the fallout again, let me take you back to how I got here, why this moment, this wedding, meant more to me than I ever expected. And let me tell you how one cruel invitation became the start of my most unexpected freedom. My name is Emily, and if there's one thing I've always been proud of, I can survive. I grew up in a quiet suburb outside of Milwaukee. My dad worked double shifts at the factory until his back gave out, and my mom cleaned houses for wealthy families. We never had much, but we had each other. I learned early that nothing in life would be handed to me. Not love, not security, not even rest. So I started working the moment I turned 16. When I met Alex, I was juggling full-time college classes and a barista job at a local coffee shop. He worked there too. An older guy, charming, always cracking jokes even when the line was out the door. There was something scrappy about him that reminded me of myself. He talked about how his parents had racked up gambling debt, how he was drowning in student loans, and how he just wanted to build something real. At the time, that resonated. I was tired of flaky guys who had everything handed to them and still complained. Alex felt raw, honest. So when he asked me out, I said yes. Early days were sweet. Coffee dates turned into home-cooked dinners in my tiny apartment. We bonded over our struggle to make ends meet. He'd listen to my dreams about working in marketing, building a career, and finally moving out of my shoebox apartment. And I'd listen to him talk about the kind of future he wanted, but didn't quite know how to reach. After I graduated, I landed a decent job at a mid-sized tech company. The pay wasn't amazing, but it was stable. Meanwhile, Alex bounced between jobs. Warehouse work, event setup, bar back at a club. He said he was still figuring things out, and I believed him. When he couldn't afford rent anymore, I told him he could move in with me. I was already covering most of my bills. What was a little more? I thought love was about sacrifice, about lifting each other. But over time, sacrifice started to feel a lot like silence, like watching him sleep in while I rushed to catch the train, like coming home to a sink full of dishes and a boyfriend on the couch scrolling TikTok, like paying 80% of the rent while he ordered takeout and blamed his stress levels for not job hunting that week. Still, I stayed. I told myself relationships had rough patches, that I just needed to be patient, that maybe he'd change. And maybe that's what hurt the most, how long I held on to hope. I wasn't perfect, but I gave him everything I had, my time, my money, my care, my heart. I cooked for us, folded his laundry, and packed his lunches for work when he had shifts. When he was sick, I took off work to nurse him. When I was sick, he told me to sleep it off. I started feeling like a mother, not a partner, like I was managing a man instead of building a life with one. Still, he kept trying until the night everything cracked. It was a Friday. I had just pulled a 14-hour day because my team had a deadline. When I got home, I was greeted not with a hug, but with the smell of beer and loud music. Alex had invited his friends over. The living room was trashed. Takeout boxes everywhere. Someone had spilled salsa on the carpet I just deep cleaned last weekend. I stood there, blinking, exhausted, numb, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel angry. I felt invisible. Alex sauntered over, grinning like nothing was wrong, and asked if I could whip up some snacks. That was it. The final thread snapped. I told everyone to leave. I told Alex to clean up his mess. I told him I wasn't his maid. And he just stood there, confused, annoyed, like I was the one overreacting. That was the moment I knew. He wasn't clueless. He just didn't care. The morning after that blow-up, Alex acted like nothing had happened. He strolled into the kitchen shirtless, rubbing his eyes and yawning as if he hadn't hosted a frat party in our living room just a few hours ago. I sat at the table, sipping cold coffee, watching him like a stranger. "You're up early," he said, grabbing the last slice of pizza from the box on the counter. Yeah, I didn't sleep. He shrugged, took a bite, and mumbled through his chewing, "You were kinda intense last night." Intense, that's what he called it. Not "I'm sorry," not "I didn't realize how tired you were," just intense. That was when I started noticing more, the way he only did the bare minimum, if that. The way I handled all the grocery runs, the bills, the laundry, the way he acted like he was entitled to care but never once offered it back. I made a list that night, literally. On my phone, I listed everything I did versus everything he did. It was embarrassing. Not for him, for me. But it got worse. A week later, I came home early from work. I'd left my charger and swung by before a late meeting. That's when I heard it. Alex on the phone, pacing the hallway. "Bro, I'm telling you, she makes good money. I barely touch my paycheck. She covers most stuff. I just chill." He laughed like this was some big win, like I was the sucker in the deal. I didn't walk in. I couldn't. I backed away slowly, heart pounding, ears burning. I wasn't just exhausted. I wasn't just underappreciated. I was being used. After that day, something in me shifted. I stopped cooking for him, stopped folding his clothes, stopped waiting for him to step up. When he asked what was for dinner, I said, "Whatever you're making." When he asked where his socks were, I said, "Wherever you left them." He noticed, of course he did. He called me cold and said I was turning into someone else, but the truth was, I was finally turning back into myself. And that's when Bella entered the picture. She worked at the event company Alex recently joined. Young, glamorous Ivy League grad with a rich family and a smile like something out of a magazine. I met her once. Alex had dragged me to a holiday mixer, and she was there, hovering near him, laughing too loud at his jokes, touching his arm just a little too often. I didn't say anything at the time. I didn't want to seem insecure, but I knew. Women always know. Soon after, Alex started coming home later, started wearing cologne again, started saying he had meetings that ran past midnight. I asked him straight up, "Is there someone else?" He blinked. "What? Are you serious?" I stared him down. "Don't lie to me, Alex." He sighed. "Look, we've both changed. You're busy all the time. You barely talk to me. I need someone who understands me." I laughed. "No, you need someone who doesn't expect anything from you." That night, he didn't come home. The next day, he confessed he and Bella had hooked up. He said it like he was doing me a favor by being honest. He even tried to justify it, said I was too career dressed, said Bella made him feel like a man. I packed his things into trash bags while he was at work, left him by the door. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just disconnected. Because somewhere deep down, I realized this wasn't about Bella or cheating. It was about years of letting myself shrink so someone else could feel bigger. For a while, I lived like a ghost in my own apartment. Even after Alex moved out, the place still smelled like his cheap cologne and leftover takeout. His empty coffee mug sat untouched on the shelf, and I couldn't bring myself to throw it away, not because I missed him, but because I couldn't believe how blind I'd been. I spent those first few weeks in a haze. Wake up, work, sleep, repeat. I was numb. No more tears, no more yelling, just silence. One evening, while scrolling through my phone, I saw his name pop up in a group chat. Someone had shared a post. There he was, Alex, wearing designer sunglasses, grinning like he'd just won the lottery, and beside him, Bella, perched on the hood of a luxury sports car, her hand resting on his chest like she owned him. The caption read, "Can't wait to build a life with this one, from struggle to success." My stomach twisted. That car wasn't his, I knew it. He didn't even have a driver's license when we were together. That apartment in the background, not his. He once told me he couldn't afford toothpaste without asking me first. I read the comments. Apple goes. Bro, you upgraded big time. Wait, isn't that his ex's couch they used to sit on? Laugh emoji. I should turn my phone off. But I didn't. I went down the rabbit hole. Photos, reels, stories, all curated to show off a fantasy that I had unknowingly helped build. My blood boiled. I remembered all the times I stayed late at work to cover rent, the nights I skipped dinner so he'd have enough to eat, the interviews I prepped him for, the resumes I rewrote. And now he was, the success story, the underdog who made it? That lie was spreading like wildfire, and I was the burned forest he'd left behind. I didn't comment, I didn't like it, I didn't block, I just watched until the envelope came. It was cream-colored, thick paper with elegant calligraphy and gold embossing. A wedding invitation. At first, I thought it was spam. Then I saw the names, Alexander James and Bella Monroe, and my address, handwritten. There was a note scribbled in the corner in Alex's unmistakable handwriting. It'd be nice if you came, you can finally see what happiness looks like. I read it again and again. My hands trembled, but not from sadness, from rage. That wasn't an invitation, that was a taunt. He wanted me to witness his triumph, to clap politely from the sidelines, to sit there alone in a sea of strangers while he kissed the woman he'd cheated with. I paced the apartment, fists clenched, heart racing. Was I going to let him do this after everything? No. But I also wasn't going to sink to his level. I wasn't going to cause a scene or make a fool of myself. If I showed up, it would be on my terms. So I started planning, not revenge, preposition. I went to the salon, bought a new dress, reached out to a stylist friend who owed me a favor. I was going to show up looking like I hadn't just survived, I'd outgrown him. But still, something nagged at me. It wasn't enough to look good. I wanted to feel free. That's when I found Jake. I wasn't stalking Bella, really. I wasn't. I just browsed. Her profile was public. I scrolled past photos of yachts, designer handbags, brunches, and Bali. And then I saw him. Tall, tan, and holding her hand in a photo dated just 7 months ago. His name was tagged Jake M. Curious, I clicked. Jake's profile was quiet, no flash, just hiking pics, music shares, and a dog named Tank. A pinned post caught my eye. Don't let people use your kindness as a convenience. It hit too close to home. I sent him a message. I was honest, awkward, respectful, told him who I was, that I wasn't looking for drama, just connection. To my surprise, he replied within hours. Let's grab coffee. I think we have more in common than we realize. We met at a small cafe on the east side. He was quiet at first, guarded, but as I shared my story, his eyes softened and then he told me his. Bella and Jake had been together for years. Since high school, everyone thought they'd get married, but as Jake saved for their future, Bella changed. She started wanting more, he said. Not just money, status, flash. She called me boring, said I lacked ambition. He chuckled bitterly. Next thing I knew, she was posting pics with some new guy. Your guy, I guess. We sat in silence for a minute. Ironic, huh? I said. We were the stepping stones. Jake looked at me and said something I'll never forget. No, we were the foundations. They just didn't deserve to build on us. That night, he texted me, if you still need a plus one, I'd be honored. And that's when everything changed. Not because I wanted revenge, but because for the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. I felt seen. And that was the beginning of the end, just not the end Alex had planned. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. My apartment, finally mine again, was spotless, quiet, and filled with strange electricity. I had my dress hung up and my nails done, Jake confirmed. Everything was ready. But my mind wasn't. No matter how much I reassured myself that this was just closure, that I wasn't doing anything wrong, part of me still trembled at the thought of seeing Alex again. What if he tried to humiliate me in front of Bella? What if Bella confronted me? What if this all backfired? I didn't want drama. I just wanted peace, or at least the chance to reclaim my dignity. The morning came fast. Jake picked me up in a charcoal gray blazer, clean-shaven and calm. As we drove to the venue, a vineyard outside the city, he kept things light. Music played low. He cracked a few jokes. I smiled, but my stomach was in knots. When we arrived, the valet looked at Jake, then at me, then back at Jake again with a flicker of recognition. I caught murmurs as we walked past clusters of guests. Is that... Wait, didn't she used to date Alex? Is that Bella's ex? I held my head high, gripping Jake's arm just a little tighter. Inside, the decor was ridiculous, roses hanging from chandeliers, gold trim everywhere, waiters in black bow ties offered champagne before the ceremony even started. Then I saw him, Alex, standing by the altar, nervously checking his watch, talking to the officiant, his hair slicked back, suit tailored to perfection, a man playing the role of success, but underneath it, I saw it, panic, like he knew the script was about to go off book. He looked up and locked eyes with me. His jaw clenched, and then he saw Jake. His face drained of color. I gave a small, polite smile. Jake nodded once respectfully, and we walked past him, calm as a breeze. It should have been the power moment. That should have been enough. But fate wasn't finished with me yet. The ceremony began. Bella walked down the aisle, stunning in a mermaid-cut gown. She didn't see us at first, but halfway through her procession, her gaze swept the room and stopped on Jake. As she stumbled, not a full fall, just a hesitation, but enough for murmurs to ripple. Jake didn't react. He stayed seated, posture perfect. I almost reached for his hand, but stopped myself. Face changed. Her practiced smile faltered. She finished her walk, but something had cracked. The vows were read, the rings exchanged, but something was off. After the ceremony, as guests moved to the reception hall, Bella disappeared. Time passed, 10 minutes, 20, a bride. Alex paced, guests whispered, the DJ stalled. Then, a bridesmaid, flushed and wide-eyed, ran into the room, holding a folded note. She walked up to the mic. I have a message from the bride. The room froze. She read aloud. To my family, my friends, and everyone here, I'm sorry. I can't go through with this. Seeing Jake today reminded me of who I was before I lost myself in someone else's dream. I thought I wanted this life, but I was wrong. Please know this is my decision alone. I'm leaving, not because of anyone here, but because I finally remembered what real love felt like. I'm sorry for the spectacle. Please forgive me. Gasps. Aunties clutched pearls, groomsmen swore under their breath. Bella's father walked out, and Alex just stood there, his hands hanging limp, eyes wide, mouth open like he'd forgotten how to speak. People turned to look at him, then at me, and suddenly the story began to write itself in their minds. Didn't say a word, didn't flinch, didn't smile. I simply stood, nodded to Jake, and walked toward the exit as chaos erupted behind us. But as we reached the door, I heard him, "Emily." I turned. Alex stormed toward us, red-faced, breath heavy. "This is your fault," he spat. People stared. Waiters froze mid-step. The string quartet trailed off awkwardly. "You brought him here to mess up my wedding." Jake stepped between us, calm and firm. "She didn't do anything. Bella made her own choice." Alex barked, "Shut up, you ruined everything." And I looked him dead in the eye. "No, Alex, you ruined everything years ago when you started using people and calling it love." His face contorted. For a second, he looked like he wanted to hit something, but then he saw the phones pointed at him. The guests whispered, the camera crew still rolling, and he thought. I turned and walked away. Later that night, at home, I opened a bottle of wine. Alone, calm, free. But it wasn't over yet, because 2 days later, Alex showed up at my door. I should have known he wouldn't let it go. 2 days after the disastrous wedding, I heard loud banging on my front door. It was a Saturday morning. I hadn't even had my coffee yet. At first, I ignored it. I thought maybe it was a delivery until I heard his voice. "Emily, open the damn door." Oh, I froze. He kept knocking, louder now. My neighbors would hear. "Emily, I know you're in there. We need to talk." I opened the door just a crack, the chain still on. He looked wrecked. Unshaven, shirt wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. "You have 5 seconds," I said. "Say what you need to say from there." He scoffed. "You think this is funny? You think you won?" I blinked slowly. "I didn't come to your wedding to win anything, Alex. I came because you invited me." He sneered. "Don't play innocent. You knew what you were doing, bringing Jake. You planned this." I crossed my arms. "I didn't make Bella walk out. That was all her. She only left because she saw him, and you knew that would happen." He slammed his fist against the frame, making me flinch. "I'm calling the cops if you don't back up," I said flatly. He took a step back, hands raised mockingly. "Wow, really? After everything I did for you, now you're threatening me?" I laughed, not bitter, just exhausted. "Everything you did for me? Alex, you used me like a lifeline. And when you found someone richer, you jumped ship and tried to rub it in my face." His jaw clenched. "You don't get it, do you? Bella was my chance to finally get out of this hellhole life. Do you think I liked being broke, being dependent? I had a plan." I stared at him and I was, "What, your stepping stone?" He didn't answer. So I pushed the door open wider and stepped outside. "You didn't just use me, Alex. You resented me. Every time I succeeded, you made me feel guilty. You made me feel less feminine because I had goals, because I didn't want to sit around and wait for life to happen. You were cold," he said quietly. "You changed." "No," I corrected. "I grew. You just stayed small." He stared at me for a long moment, then in a voice I hadn't heard before, low, bitter, broken, he said, "Bella was supposed to fix everything, her money, her family, her world. I was finally supposed to live like someone." "And now?" I asked. He didn't reply. As I took a breath, "Leave, Alex. Don't come back." He looked like he might cry, but I didn't care. I closed the door, and this time it felt closed. That afternoon, I changed my locks, installed a camera. I blocked his number on everything. And when I sat back on my couch in my clean, quiet space, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. But that wasn't the end. A week later, Jake called. "I think you should hear this," he said. "Bella wants to meet." I hesitated. My gut said no. My pride said absolutely not. But my curiosity? It said yes. We met at the same cafe where Jake and I had first spoken. Bella was already there, dressed simply, no designer bag, no heels, no entourage. Um, just her. She stood when she saw me. Her eyes looked tired, but soft. "Thank you for coming," she said. I nodded but didn't smile. "I wanted to apologize," she said, "for everything. The way I looked at you, spoke about you. I didn't really know who I was back then." I stayed silent. "I let Alex talk about you like you were nothing," she continued, and I believed him because it was easier than admitting I was with someone who wasn't kind. My throat tightened, not with emotion, with something harder, a strange, cautious respect. "I've done a lot of selfish things," she said, "but walking away from that wedding, it was the first time I chose me." "And Jake?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "We're figuring it out." We sipped our drinks in silence for a while. Then she asked, "Do you hate me?" I thought about it. "No," I said finally. "I don't. I think we were both caught up in different lies. But I've let it go." Bella looked relieved. We didn't hug, we didn't exchange numbers. But when we walked away, I felt something heavy lift off my chest. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the girl who got left behind. I felt like the woman who chose to walk forward. In the weeks after that surreal coffee meeting with Bela, something inside me clicked into place. I stopped checking social media for updates on Alex or Bella or even Jake. I stopped refreshing old texts or playing imaginary arguments in my head. Instead, I started waking up earlier, working harder, and, for the first time in years, focusing only on me. That clarity, it was addictive. I poured myself into my work and earned a major campaign lead. My manager noticed, then my director. Within a month, I was offered a promotion, creative lead on a regional rebrand project, a raise, my own small team, my name on a corner office door. For someone who used to skip meals to save money on rent, it felt like a dream. I started going to yoga again, reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in months. On weekends, I'd go to the farmer's market or take myself out to brunch with a book, alone, but never lonely. And I looked good, too. Not just in the surface way, though yes, I upgraded my wardrobe, switched up my hair, finally splurged on that skincare serum I used to think was ridiculous. But it was more than that. I walked differently, straighter, lighter, like I was finally carrying only my own weight. One day, I was grabbing coffee before work when I spotted someone familiar on the sidewalk. He was alone, leaning against a building, scrolling through his phone. He looked smaller somehow, not physically, but diminished. His posture curled inward like the world had taken the wind out of him. He was wearing the same jacket he used to wear when we were together, the one I'd bought for his birthday. He hadn't seen me. I stood there for a moment, just watching. No anger, no sadness, just a quiet realization. I didn't feel anything for him anymore, not even pity. He looked up, noticed me, and froze. I smiled. Not cruelly, not smugly, just a soft, distant, like I was acknowledging an old chapter, one I'd already closed. He tried to say something, his mouth opened slightly, but I turned and walked away. He didn't follow. Later that night, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Saw you today, you look amazing, I'm happy for you." I deleted it. I didn't need closure anymore. I had peace. And then something unexpected happened. My company was invited to pitch a campaign to one of Bella's father's firms, a luxury lifestyle brand. My manager was nervous, but I wasn't. I didn't ask for the meeting. I didn't even plan to attend in person until I got a call from Bella herself. "Hey," she said, her voice calm. "I know this is weird, but I saw your name on the proposal deck. I told my dad's team to pay close attention. They trust me." Blinked. "Why would you do that?" "Because it's good work," she said, "and because I want to see women like us win." I didn't know what to say. "I'm not looking for friendship," she added, almost laughing, "but I don't believe in gatekeeping anymore, especially from someone I once underestimated." When the campaign was approved, I was promoted again, this time to associate creative director. At the celebration dinner, surrounded by my team and a view of the skyline, I thought back to that girl who once cried into a pillow wondering why love had to hurt so much. She'd be proud of me. Not because I won some invisible war, but because I stopped fighting altogether. I had leveled up, not to prove anything to anyone, but because I finally made space to become who I was meant to be. And the irony? In trying so hard to showcase his success, Alex had set the stage for mine. Without even realizing it, he pushed me off a cliff, only for me to discover I had wings. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, completely unplanned. I was at a corporate networking event downtown, hosted by a marketing trade association. One of those industry mixers with name tags, catered sliders, and lukewarm wine in plastic glasses. I wasn't even going to attend, but my boss had nudged me, saying, "Good exposure, Em. You're on the rise. People need to know your name." So I went. I wore a cream blazer, wide-leg trousers, and a red lip that made me feel unstoppable. I mingled, I laughed, I handed out business cards like candy, and then I saw him, Alex. He was standing in a far corner of the room, near the snack table. His posture was hunched, his hair unkempt. He wasn't surrounded by people, he was alone, scanning the room like he wasn't quite sure why he was there. I was stunned, not because I saw him, but because he looked so out of place. He wasn't wearing a name tag, he didn't have a drink in hand, and most telling of all, he didn't have Bella. My curiosity got the better of me. I quietly asked someone nearby, "Who's that guy by the table?" The woman glanced over, then leaned in. "Oh, that's the guy who used to work at West Edge Events. Heard he got let go last month, something about a messy personal scandal." I raised an eyebrow. "Scandal?" She shrugged. "Apparently his ex-fiancée left him at the altar, went viral. Some guest filmed the whole meltdown. He's been trying to freelance since then, but it's not going well." I froze. Viral? Later that night, I searched online. Sure enough, there it was. A shaky cell phone video from the wedding, the bridesmaid reading Bella's note, the gasps, Alex standing stunned and alone. The clip had over 800,000 views. Caption: "Rich bride ditches groom for ex during vows. Awkward AF?" The comments were brutal. "Yikes, you can see the guy glitch in real time." Plot twist of the year. He deserves an Oscar for that blank stare. But buried in the thread, one comment stood out. "Honestly, props to the girl who showed up with Bella's ex. That woman's energy, iconic." I laughed. Not out of spite, but because the universe has a wicked sense of timing. Back at the networking event, Alex still hadn't noticed me. So I walked over. "Alex," I said, calm and direct. He turned, his eyes widened like he'd seen a ghost. "Emily," he muttered. "Didn't expect to see you here," I said, sipping my drink. He looked me up and down, visibly struggling to form a sentence. I thought you moved," he stammered. "I did. Up." I smiled. He gave a weak chuckle. "I've had a rough few weeks." He swallowed. "Look, I know things ended badly, but Alex, I interrupted gently, we're not doing this. You don't owe me an apology, and I don't owe you anything either. He blinked. I just wanted to say, but I was already walking away. Before I left, I turned back one last time. I hope someday you stop measuring your worth by who stands next to you and start figuring out who you are without them. He didn't respond. Chase didn't smile. And I realized something in that moment. He wasn't the villain in my story anymore. He was just irrelevant. The room buzzed around me. A colleague waved me over to introduce me to someone on the hiring board of a Fortune 500 firm. People were asking about my campaign, complimenting my team, talking strategy. And Alex, he was still standing by the snack table alone. That was the real twist. The man who tried so hard to prove he'd won was now the one watching me walk away. Only this time, no spotlight, no crowd, no stage, just truth and quiet, undeniable consequences. It's funny how life circles back, not in perfect loops, but in messy spirals. If someone had told me 2 years ago that I'd walk through heartbreak, betrayal, humiliation, and still come out more grounded than ever, I wouldn't have believed them. But here I am. I don't think about Alex much anymore, not because I've erased him, but because he's no longer the center of my narrative. He's a chapter, one I've read, underlined, learned from, and closed. I wish I could say I forgave him instantly, that I reached some Zen-like enlightenment and let it all go in a single breath. But the truth? Forgiveness isn't a lightning strike. It's a slow, sometimes painful peeling away of hurt until you reach what's underneath, yourself. The self you buried, the self you doubted, the self you thought wasn't enough. And when you get there, really get there, you realize something powerful. You were never broken. You were bending, growing, becoming. Today I live in a different apartment. Sunlight pours into my kitchen each morning. There's no clutter, no unpaid bills, no dead weight on the couch, just peace, plants, and playlists that make me dance in my pajamas. I've learned to enjoy my own company, to celebrate the quiet. And love, I'm not chasing it anymore. I'm not auditioning for it either. If it comes, it will find me whole, not waiting to be completed. As for Bella and Jake, I hear they moved to another city, started fresh. And though we don't keep in touch, I genuinely wish them well. We were all trying to outrun our own shadows back then. Maybe now we're learning how to sit still and face them. Sometimes people hurt you out of fear, sometimes they hurt you out of selfishness, and sometimes they never intended to hurt you at all. They just didn't know how to be anything but broken. But none of that is your responsibility. What is your responsibility is what you do next. You can carry the bitterness like armor, or you can use the lessons as tools. I chose the latter. And here's what I learned. Never apologize for growing faster than someone else. Never water yourself down to fit someone else's cup. And never, ever confuse being needed with being loved. The strongest thing I ever did wasn't walking away from Alex. It was walking back to myself. So if you're reading this and you've been used or lied to or made to feel small, please hear me. You're not weak for having loved someone who didn't deserve it. You're just human. And sometimes the most powerful comeback isn't revenge or a spotlight or even justice. Sometimes it's peace. The kind that fills your lungs, that lifts your chin, that reminds you, you survived and you're still here. Civil rising, still enough, always have been,